Good evening to you at home, everybody. I'm Tiffany Cross in for Joy Reid, and we begin the readout tonight just hours away from the first hearing of the House Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack, where, according to committee member Adam Schiff, there will be video the public hasn't yet seen. We'll hear from 4 members of the Capitol Police who will detail the trauma they experienced when a mob of Trump supporters, some even carrying flags supporting the police, stormed their way into the Capitol. Now, here's some of what we'll likely hear tomorrow from the officers who will be testifying.
For some people, January 6th just happened in one day. For me, for those responding officer, is nonstop.
While the fight was happening, I didn't process it while it was happening. So once it's all over and you're attempting to put together in your mind what happened.
I got pinned to the doorway. They ripped my mask off, stole my equipment, beat me up, sprayed me with everything.
I do grapple with PTSD as a result of that day. It like cannibalizes you. It just eats you alive.
Now, according to Capitol Police, 140 officers were injured during the insurrection, the irony of the Blue Lives Matter crowd. And the DOJ says that more than 165 individuals have been charged with assaulting or impeding law enforcement. In a statement announcing tomorrow's hearing, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said that, quote, "We have the duty to the Constitution and the country to find the truth of the January 6th insurrection and to ensure that such an assault on our democracy cannot happen again." Now, this weekend, Speaker Pelosi announced that Illinois Republican Adam Kinzinger would join the Select Committee. Now, Kinzinger, you'll remember, voted to impeach Trump earlier this year and is the second Republican on the committee alongside Congresswoman Liz Cheney. Now, this came after Republican Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy pulled all of his picks from the committee after Pelosi rejected Congressman Jim Banks and Jim Jordan, who both refused to certify the election. In a statement, Kinzinger said, "I'm a Republican dedicated to conservative values, but I swore an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution. And while this is not the position I expect to be in or sought out when duty calls, I will always answer." Now, here's how McCarthy reacted to that today.
Some Republicans have been saying that the GOP should play ball on this committee. You could get the 3.
Who was that? Adam and Liz?
Well,
aren't they kind of like Pelosi Republicans?
Pelosi Republicans. Now, Liz Cheney, who will give opening remarks tomorrow after Democratic Committee Chair Benny Thompson, she had this response.
Well, look, we're about this very serious business here. We have important work to do, and I think that's pretty childish.
All right, let's get into it. Joining me now is Congressman Pete Aguilar of California. He is a member of the committee we've been talking about, the Select Committee to investigate January 6th. Christina Greer, Associate Professor of Political Science at Fordham University, and Olivia Troy. She was a former senior aide to the White House Coronavirus Task Force and Director of the Republican Accountability Project. Congressman Aguilar, very happy to have you join the program tonight ahead of a big day that you have tomorrow. Look, I know we're going to hear from the police officers tomorrow. I think everybody's very eager to hear the testimony of some of the folks that the committee will call. So aside from the police officers, who is on your list of people we'll hear from?
Well, tomorrow is about those police officers that you mentioned. And so that's what we're going to do first. That's going to lay the groundwork and set the frame for the conversation that we're going to have about the January 6th commission. But it is so important that the public gets to hear directly from these 4 officers who were the last line of defense, protecting our democracy, protecting this Capitol building, and protecting us from all these insurrectionists. And so it's going to be important to hear them out. We want to hear their stories. We want them to share their perspectives. There'll be plenty of time for us to get to the next steps. But right now it's about these 4 officers and their experiences and what they went through on January 6th and continue to deal with.
Well, I want to stick with you for a second because we'll all be riveted, I'm sure, by their testimony. We'll certainly be talking about it tomorrow here on the readout. But I am curious when you subpoena other people, how exactly will you enforce subpoenas? Because once the police officers testify, there's a lot of leftover questions. You know, Don Jr. spoke at that rally. Kim Guilfoyle spoke at that rally. Donald Trump himself, the conversation with Kevin McCarthy. So for the people that you testify, if you don't want to share that information now, how will you ensure that they show up to testify before this committee?
Well, there are tools that the committee has in our tool belt. We hope it doesn't come to that, but we will be prepared to exhaust every possible scenario in order to compel people to share what happened. Our goal, our charge, our mission is to tell the story about January 6th, what led up to the 6th, who funded it, and how we make sure that this never happens again. And so we're going to exhaust every avenue available. And if that means using the courts to enforce things, then we will. But we hope it doesn't come to that. But there are tools that the committee has in our tool belt. I'll follow the lead of our chairman and make sure that we are exercising every possible way that we can compel people to come before us.
All right. Well, it took Don McGahn 2 years of court battles to finally testify. So hopefully it won't take that long. Christina, let me turn to you here, because one thing that I think has been a bit frustrating with the American public is why exactly does this committee have to be so bipartisan? You know, it's like if you were prosecuting Dave Koresh, you're not ever thinking, oh, we should get the Branch Davidians on the committee too, so to get their perspective. What do you think the intention of having a bipartisan committee is?
Well, Tiffany, I mean, the intent should be that all Americans should feel concerned and disgusted and just aggrieved by what happened on January 6th. Sadly, it's primarily Democrats who view the insurrectionists and what happened on January 6th as a real assault, not just on the Capitol, but on American democracy writ large. Republicans most have yet to fully acknowledge it. We know they've backtracked and have tried to rewrite history to say it's just a few tourists who got turned around. Oh, it's a march that was, just a little bit unsavory, but it wasn't that big of a deal. And we've seen not just the deaths, but obviously the aftermath for police officers, to say nothing of the staff that was in that building, especially people of color and immigrants who, knew that they were definitely in such a dangerous position. So it really has to be Democrats pushing their Republican colleagues to acknowledge the truth and facts. I mean, this idea that we're even divided as to what happened on January 6th when we see it with our own eyes is really something where I think that's the impetus behind Nancy Pelosi to say, if this affected the entire American populace, we need to have both parties at the table. But we see the reticence of Republicans to even acknowledge what happened on that day that is so well documented in so many different ways.